Sounding people, welcome back to another video, everyone. And it has been a while since the last one, but a lot's happened in the time since we last connected. And it's been a whirlwind, people, for Arsenal this season. And as we sit in this current March international break, I feel as if it's the perfect situation for Arsenal. If you'd asked me during that winter break in January, what would be an ideal scenario? It would be right in the mix in the title race, within a handful of points of the lead, or just in front, and then into the quarterfinals of the Champions League. That would have been acceptable for me. But the fact that we are sitting top of the table on goal difference, ahead of these two juggernauts in Liverpool and Man City, and are also in the quarterfinals of the Champions League for the first time in 14 years. For me, it's very exciting, people. It's really, really exciting. And another compelling aspect for me has been the fact that I think we're good enough for this. I think this is a reflection of where the club currently stands in terms of quality and how Arteta has developed this setup, how he has created the culture at Arsenal, and the morals that I think he has really instilled that almost underpin that culture in terms of a group orientation, being happy to see your teammates succeed, and also an effort in training, an understanding of doing it for the club, having Arsenal at the centre of your intentions and ambitions, and that aspect of trying to create a bond with the supporters. And we see this, people, often during the celebrations, which are often derided and mocked. And I think one of the reasons people like to throw stones at Arsenal celebrations isn't because they disagree with rejoicing in a positive moment. I think it's because they don't like, or they're somewhat jealous of, Arsenal's togetherness, and the fact that these celebrations are very indicative of a club that's in a harmonious state. And we see this, people, when Arsenal do win, you'll often see the players go over, thank the supporters, applaud the supporters, do little dances, celebrate with the fans, even take photos, as we saw with Martin Odegaard and the cameraman. But it all is, for me, is very contained, and it's very natural, organic and harmless. I don't think there's ever any intent to rub it into the opposition. I feel, and I was observing some images maybe, and it was just like a brief clip, and I don't even fully know the context, but I felt as if Porto celebrations after they won the first leg against Arsenal were somewhat more deriding and almost mocking of Arsenal, and I think that came across in some of the quotes from their manager as well. Whereas I feel when Arsenal win, it's very much a collective outpouring of joy within our group. We're not trying to damage or throw stones or try and take feathers off someone else. It's almost like we're comfortable enough in who we are that we don't need to garner any kind of extra props or extra wins by somehow diminishing our opposition. So that's something I really appreciate, people, about the culture that Mikel Arteta is building, is the very positive and good-natured, good-spirited way in which we celebrate our wins. And in terms of that harmony aspect, people, and being happy for the success of our fellow teammate, I noticed that with Aaron Ramsdale, after David Raya was the hero in the penalty shootout against Porto, Ramsdale was one of the first people over to really celebrate with him, and it looked so authentic. And when you think back to the quotes from Jamie Carragher from earlier in the season about, it reminded him of an actor who was applauding a fellow nominee who had subsequently won an Oscar award. In other words, somewhat fake applause, because deep down you're not happy that your rival has succeeded. But I think Jamie Carragher was exhibiting there this very bitterness that I was speaking about in terms of rival representatives, be it in the media or fans. What they're really disappointed about is the sincerity and this wholesome nature in which Arsenal connect with each other, be it between our own teammates or from teammates to supporters. And that's something that is completely Arteta-led. And that's why I think his celebrations are very positive, because it's creating a culture of positivity. I really think it's creating a culture of positivity at Arsenal. So that's something I really wanted to mention, people, just the general picture of where we're sitting at the moment. And we can dive into some more specific details about players and aspects like that and where it leaves us with regards to the rest of the season. But something that is really hitting home to me, people, I don't know if you agree about this, is the fact that during last March and the international break at that time in 2023, we also were top of the league at that point. But I didn't quite have that same calmness and serenity and trust that things were going to remain. As much as I was hopeful and confident, I remember predicting Arsenal would win the league, I also felt a degree of, this has felt quite turbulent in the sense of how we'd often come back in games that looked as if we were going to lose. For example, the Bournemouth game, the Aston Villa game, it was a little bit fraught and frenetic. And maybe there was an element of truth in that when Gary Neville said that there was perhaps somewhat of a emotional way in which Arsenal was somehow mustering something at the end of matches. Perhaps there was an element of truth in what Gary Neville said there. But what gives me some confidence and some peace of mind this time around is I just feel like our performances and our output is very much within our capabilities. I feel like we're so well drilled and well coached and well practiced in our strategy that there's kind of performances we're seeing, it feels very like we can repeat this again and again. We've struck on a formula and I feel like we can keep going with it. And another aspect of that, people, I feel, has stemmed from the overarching strategy this season, which has been more of a containing, control-based style. And this has involved maybe reducing the speed of our play, of our passing, potentially of our counter-attacks, and the time in which it takes us to move from the defensive third to the attacking third. I do feel we have slowed things up, but I think a byproduct of that is allowed us to establish a sense of defensive control and defensive comfort, where players are less often caught out of position. And I think this is really working, people, and I'm really comfortable with our balance of defence versus attack, and that's been borne out in the numbers. The fact that we've recorded 2 6-0 wins, 2 5-0 wins over the past two to 3 months just shows we're scoring a lot of goals, but also keeping it watertight at the back. And if we can keep that going in these last 10 matches, I don't see any reason why we can't keep maintaining our level of output. Now, there are always vagaries, such as maybe your GA, or expected goals and goals conceded, doesn't quite match the actual goals that you score and the goals that you concede. So in some cases that might be through you miss a lot of chances from presentable opportunities, or opponents seem to score with their only attack. And that is something that could still happen. I still feel like although we are more productive, it's not a guarantee that we're going to keep winning matches, because you do get these results that go contrary to the numbers in terms of the expected goals each team is predicted to have scored. And I think the game against Aston Villa was a good marker of that earlier in the season, when we lost 1-0, where we perhaps had the better of the play, but Aston Villa won. Maybe a similar story against West Ham, where we lost at home. Fulham, I think, was a different one, because they played well and they deserved that one, I think. But I'm still hoping, people, that we can keep converting our opportunities. I think that's important. And to that end, I was really happy to see Martinelli get a goal against Sheffield United. It was unfortunate to see him go down injured. Hopefully that isn't too serious and he can be back for that Man City game. And also to see Saka in the goal scoring form that he's in, and Trossard, because I genuinely believe, people, that Trossard is our best finisher, and I want to see him come to the fore and play as much as possible in that false nine role. I would like to see him and Havertz both be playing, and I think at the moment I would be inclined to just break Jesus in gradually, and maybe Jesus' impact can become more of a thing in the Champions League. I would be more inclined to maybe keep what we've been doing in the Premier League for now, and maybe Jesus could be that difference maker in the Champions League, because I think that element of X factor and magic he can bring is perhaps a little bit more conducive to that Champions League moment, where it is a little bit more on moments of brilliance that decide the matches, rather than your more percentage based repetition of which team's going to be better. Because when Arsenal play Sheffield United or Luton, or whoever it may be, you'd think like the numbers approach would benefit. Like the more we attack certain areas, the more possession we have, it's going to probably translate into a goal differential in Arsenal's favour. Whereas against Bayern Munich, maybe that might not be enough, and you might need that rabbit out of a hat that Gabriel Jesus can provide. So that's sort of how I'm seeing it, people, in terms of the Champions League versus the league. And also Martin Ødegaard, I've been so happy to see his form of late. I really think he's progressing and turning into an incredible player now. Like, I always felt last season he was perhaps given more of an emerging player in terms of how people perceived him, how they compared him to Kevin De Bruyne, etc. But I now feel as if he is in that category of one of the best midfielders in the world. His technique, the weight of his passing, his vision, the variety of his passing. Like, I was looking at those images of some highlights of his performance against Porto, because someone did a compilation on YouTube, and there was so many different types of passing. Like one where he lifted it up to Saka, almost like a scoop pass, and Saka was able to run onto it. Others he was crossing it. Others it was like a knifed through ball along the grass that stayed really low. That for me is his trademark, the one that skids along the ground, and it really does penetrate. It moves forward quite fast. There's a lot of speed on the ball, but at the same time it's controlled. So I feel his passing and the way he can orchestrate and sculpt our attacking moves is so pivotal, people. And I think Ødegaard is going to be the player that potentially is the difference for us this season. Now, I did want to talk, people, about one other aspect, and it was something I've been seeing online lately. A lot of aggro and criticism coming at the door of Ben White for his decision to declare himself unavailable for selection from this latest squad that England are undergoing with these matches against Brazil. And there's one other match, escapes who, I forget who it is. But I just couldn't believe, like on Talksport, there was Harry Redknapp, Danny Mills, Andy Goldstein, Faker others. Like every day there seemed to be a new person criticising Ben White's decision. Now, I just find this ridiculous because, first of all, I feel Ben White is more of a victim than a problem in this situation, because obviously something went down at the World Cup in 2022, Ben White left, and he hasn't been reintegrated into the England setup since. And I just think it's more of a failing from the England setup that they haven't been able to amend and repair relations with Ben White and reach out to him and have a conversation and maybe just air things out. Instead, it's been left and it's lingered on and it's gotten a bit awkward, and to the point where 18 months later, Southgate's still professing this almost confusion about what's going on. Why isn't Ben with us? The door's always open. But I'm thinking, and this has often struck me about Southgate, why are you not having that conversation with Ben White? Why is this something that's coming out in public 18 months later? Surely, as the England boss, you've got to be a little bit more proactive in recognising any issues that may be arising in terms of interpersonal relationships and trying to resolve them rather than just letting them fester and letting them linger. I just feel like it's more of a fault on Southgate and the England setup that they haven't reached out to White and tried to get him back in, because I just feel now Ben White's been left out to dry, and I just feel it's very narrow-minded and short-sighted of these pundits to castigate and to criticise Ben White, because after all, they don't know the details. They don't know the reasons why Ben White is refusing this call. And I just feel, what institution, if you're looking at a relationship between an institution and an employee, you've always got to look at an employer, an employee, a worker of an institution, and the institution itself. You've always got to look at the institution and their processes and their systems for dealing with workplace complaints. So if there's a confrontation, if there's a conflict at work, there's always a system of grievance procedures, a system of conflict and resolution, a system of counselling or line managers or appraisals. There are protocols that can be followed to nurture and to work with somebody experiencing a workplace issue. And if that employee who's been the recipient or is party to this situation, if they are not left feeling satisfied as a result, and they exclude themselves from participation with that workplace, you've got to look at the workplace first, I think, because they're the ones with the processes, they're the ones with the power, they're the ones with the system in place that you think should mitigate any issues that can arise. So I just feel the fact that Ben White is being pointed out, to me, just smacks of a little bit of a media-led intention to disrupt and destabilise Arsenal. I think that they're almost opportunistically looking at this situation and thinking, Ben White, he's an Arsenal player, we're going to use this as a way to try and cause a little bit of upset in the Arsenal camp. Let's try and destabilise Ben White. Let's try and make him a little less confident, a little more uncomfortable when he steps on the pitch, just so this means Arsenal fall off the road in this title race. Because it's been reported widely by various YouTube accounts out there how Arsenal are belying or are going beyond and countering people's predictions about how they would do. So 2-3 years ago, when Arteta was at the beginning of his rebuild phase and Arsenal's results weren't quite what they are now, he finished 8th a couple of times, a lot of pundits wrote Arsenal off, a lot of media outlets were quick to ridicule Arteta, quick to stick the knife into the Arsenal fans. Now Arteta's proving them wrong. They don't want that to end in a fairy tale Arsenal win, because ultimately it would mean they have to swallow their pride and admit they were wrong, which they don't want to do. Instead, they're seeing this Ben White opportunity as a moment to say, hey, maybe we can target Arsenal in this way and throw them off course. That's certainly how I see it, people, and I'm fully with Ben White, fully with all the Arsenal players. And on this situation, I just feel he deserves a bit of backing, deserves a bit of the benefit of the doubt in the absence of any evidence. And yeah, he deserves the full support of everyone, really, but particularly the Arsenal fans. And that's my message here as an Arsenal fan. I'm right behind Ben White, and I'm right behind the team, people. I really want us to keep going as we're going and to keep playing with a smile on our face, to keep enjoying it, to not let the external noise somehow add pressure or add some kind of resistance internally where we want to be disproving someone. I want us to feel light and comfortable in how we go about things. So we're doing this because we want to do it. We're in the title race because we feel like this is what we enjoy. It's like Declan Rice said in a recent interview, we're loving being in the title race, or we're really enjoying it. And that's the kind of attitude I want people. I want us to feel this sense of enjoyment, this sense of this is new, this is an adventure, but hey, we like it. And we want a bit more of this. And that's definitely how I feel, people. I really hope we can keep up this momentum, this form, this ability to carry out the plan into action. And let's see where we end up. Let's see how we keep going in these upcoming matches. All right, people. Let me know if you've got any thoughts on any of the stuff I've said today. Don't forget to like, people, the video, if you like the video. And comment if you have anything you want to add to the discussion. And yeah, let's keep things moving, people. Let's keep the discussion coming, and let's hope Arsenal can keep moving forward. All right, people. Peace. Love.